Sierra landscape that I have seen holds anything truly dead or dull, or any trace of what in manufactories is called rubbish or waste. Everything is perfectly clean and pure, and full of divine lessons. This quick, inevitable interest attaching to everything seems marvellous until the hand of God becomes visible. Then it seems reasonable that what interests Him may well interest us. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. One fancies a heart like our own must be beating in every crystal and cell, and we feel like stopping to speak to the plants and animals as friendly fellow mountaineers. Nature as a poet, an enthusiastic working man, becomes more and more visible the farther and higher we go, for the mountains are fountains, beginning places, however related to sources beyond mortal ken. I found 3 kinds of meadows. 1. Those contained in basins not yet filled with earth enough to make a dry surface. They are planted with several species of carax, and have their margins diversified with robust flowering plants, such as veratrum, larkspur, lupin, etc. 2. Those contained in the same sort of basins, once lakes like the first, but so situated in relation to the streams that flow through them, and beds of transportable sand, gravel, etc., that they are now high and dry and well drained. This dry condition and corresponding difference in their vegetation may be caused by no superiority of position or power of transporting filling material in the streams that belong to them, but simply by the basin being shallower and therefore sooner filled. They are planted with grasses, mostly fine, silky, and rather short-leaved calamagrostis and agrostis being the principal genera. They form delightfully smooth level sods, in which one finds 2 or 3 species of gentian, and as many of purple and yellow orthocarpus, violet, vaccinium, kalmia, bryanthus, and lonicera. 3. Meadows hanging on ridge and mountain slopes, not in basins at all, but made and held in place by masses of boulders and fallen trees, which, forming dams one above another in close succession on small, outspread, channelless streams, have collected soil enough for the growth of grasses, carices, and many flowering plants, and being kept well watered, without being subject to currents sufficiently strong to carry them away. A hanging or sloping meadow is the result. Their surfaces are seldom so smooth as the others, being roughened more or less by the projecting tops of the dam rocks or logs. But at a little distance this roughness is not noticed, and the effect is very striking. Bright green, fluent, down-sweeping flowery ribbons on grey slopes. The broad shallow streams these meadows belong to are mostly derived from the banks of snow, and because the soil is well drained in some places, while in others the dam rocks are packed close and caulked with bits of wood and leaves, making boggy patches, the vegetation of course is correspondingly varied. I saw patches of willow, bryanthus, and a fine show of lilies on some of them, not forming a margin but scattered about among the carax and grass. Most of these meadows are now in their prime. How wonderful must be the temper of the elastic leaves of grasses and sedges to make curves so perfect and fine. Tempered a little harder, they would stand erect, stiff and bristly, like strips of metal. A little softer, and every leaf would lie flat. And what fine painting and tinting there is on the glooms and pales, stamens and feathery pistils! Butterflies coloured like the flowers waver above them in wonderful profusion, and many other beautiful winged people, numbered and known and loved, only by the Lord, are waltzing together high overhead, seemingly in pure play and hilarious enjoyment of their little sparks of life. How wonderful they are! How do they get a living and endure the weather? How are their little bodies, with muscles, nerves, organs, kept warm and jolly in such admirable exuberant health? Regarded only as mechanical inventions, how wonderful they are! Compared with these, godlike man's greatest machines are as nothing. Most of the sandy gardens on moraines are in prime beauty like the meadows, though some on the north sides of rocks and behind groves of sapling pines have not yet bloomed. On sunny sheets of crystal soil along the slopes of the Hoffman Mountains I saw extensive patches of Ivesia and purple gilia, with scarce a green leaf, making fine clouds of colour. Ribis bushes, vaccinium and kalmia, now in bloom, make beautiful rugs and borders along the banks of the streams. Shaggy beds of dwarf oak, Quercus chrysolipis, variant vaccinifolia, over which one may walk, are common on rocky moraines, yet this is the same species as the large live oak seen near Brown's Flat. The most beautiful of the shrubs is the purple flowered bryanthus, here making glorious carpets at an elevation of 9,000 feet. The principal tree for the first mile or two from camp is the magnificent silver fir, which reaches perfection here, both in size and form of individual trees and in the mode of grouping in groves with open spaces between. So trim and tasteful are these silvery, spiry groves, one would fancy they must have been placed in position by some master landscape gardener, their regularity seeming almost conventional. But nature is the only gardener able to do work so fine. A few noble specimens, 200 feet high, occupy central positions in the groups with younger trees around them, and outside of these another circle of yet smaller ones, the whole arranged like tastefully symmetrical bouquets, every tree fitting nicely the place assigned to it, as if made especially for it. Small roses and eriogonums are usually found blooming on the open spaces about the groves, forming charming pleasure grounds. Higher, the firs gradually become smaller and less perfect, many showing double summits, indicating storm stress. Still, where good moraine soil is found, even on the rim of the lake basin, specimens 150 feet in height and 5 feet in diameter occur nearly 9,000 feet above the sea. The saplings, I find, are mostly bent with the crushing weight of the winter snow, which at this elevation must be at least 8 or 10 feet deep, judging by marks on the trees. And this depth of compacted snow is heavy enough to bend and bury young trees 20 or 30 feet in height, and hold them down for 4 or 5 months. Some are broken, others spring up when the snow melts, and at length attain a size that enables them to withstand the snow pressure. Yet even in trees 5 feet thick, the traces of this early discipline are still plainly to be seen in their curved insteps, and frequently in old dried saplings protruding from the trunk, partially overgrown by the new axis developed from a branch below the break. Yet through all this stress the forest is maintained in marvellous beauty. Beyond the silver firs I find the two-leaved pine, variant Mariana, forms the bulk of the forest up to an elevation of 10,000 feet or more, the highest timber belt of the Sierra. I saw a specimen nearly 5 feet in diameter growing on deep well-watered soil at an elevation of about 9,000 feet. The form of this species varies very much with position, exposure, soil, etc. On stream banks, where it is closely planted, it is very slender. Some specimens, 75 feet high, do not exceed 5 inches